Welcome to Iraq, where there is this massive structure that is called the Ziggurat of Ur, and it's, I believe, a biblical place, and it looks like the Tower of Babel or something from a distant Blade Runner era or something absolutely ridiculous. But the story behind this, for me personally, is interesting because back when I was dreaming really hard about 4 or 5 years ago, and probably over the last 10 years, I think it probably began, this was the site of one of my recurring dreams. I've had a few different recurring dreams throughout my life, and one of them is this place. One is across from my old house, where it was like old Wonderland, and then another one was in this weird distant hill place, but this was another place that I'd visited in multiple dreams and had amazing visions of. And I remember climbing up those stairs to the side. That's what really gave it away for me when I ended up stumbling across this structure in some of these pictures, was those side stairs. I've been on those in my dreams. And I remember a couple of dreams I would only get to the top of the stairs. Some dreams I would get up to the top and see that it kept going and it would extend. And it was not only up but over. And there was something sacred in the distance that I could never get to in the dreams. I regret it. Hopefully I'll get a chance to go back. But there was always this lingering place in the distance that was like sacred. It had like a holy, resonating, glowing, like just thing that I couldn't put my mind on. Never got to see. I never made it to it. But I spent so much time in the dreams climbing up the side and going and walking around what was a lot bigger in my dream. And it was just built exactly like this, and this thing is remarkable. They had some excavations in the 1850s, which I also find very interesting. There's amazing artifacts there that are like ancient Egyptian, ancient mastery, and it's this introduction of this book. I'll put all the links below to the cool books that I found, which told me about these cylinders of Nabonidus or Nabonidus, and that's one of the things that they found there. So these things right here, and I began to wonder, was this like a music box of some sort? Did this have some metal resonance? Was this some sort of instrument, some sort of thing you put in an instrument that would then read it off to you, perhaps, or something? Was there a machine that you would put in to carve cylinders like this? Because there are several and they all look very interesting. And I found a couple translations and they're radically different. Both of them are radically different, but they allude to a world that is just absolutely nuts. And it's kind of fitting of the dream that I was in. And if dreams are the only way that we can get back there, then so be it, because that was an amazing one, and I hope it comes back. It's been years, but since I discovered it, then I remember coming across the picture and being like, wow, I was like shaken to the core that I had dreamt of this place. And it turns out in Iraq wars, people destroy it. ISIS, all different kinds of people have destroyed it. US has occupied it, protected it. I believe a lot of soldiers speak about protecting it, which is very nice. But for purposes of this, I wanted to read the cylinders and the translations of them. And then again, both radically different, both very interesting, and both kind of wild if either of them are right. So who knows? It's supposedly Babylonian from about 500 BC. Who knows about anything, though? This could be 500 years ago. It could be 1,000 years ago. It could be millions of years ago. Who the heck knows? I'm open to anything. But I found these interesting either way. So here we go. Enjoy this. Enjoy some pictures about this place and just envision and imagine how high it went, how far over it went, how under it goes, how deep it goes, how just what they did here, what it was like in its prime. Again, try to envision all this stuff when you see these artifacts and this mastery surrounding it. So here we go. The Cylinder of Nabonidus. Translation. This says, the translation of the Nabonidus cylinder was made by Paul Alain Bailu, author of The Reign of Nabonidus, King of Babylon, 556 to 539 BC. Another translation, which I'll read after, was made by Leo Oppenheim, and is copied from James B. Pritchard's Ancient Near Eastern Texts Relating to the Old Testament from 1950. So, here we go. This is the first one. I, Nabonidus, the great king, the strong king, the king of the universe, the king of Babylon, the king of the four corners, the caretaker of Asagala and Izida, for whom Sin and Ningal in his mother's womb decreed a royal fate as his destiny, the son of Nabu Balasi Ikbi, the wise prince, the worshipper of the great gods, I Ahulful, the temple of Sin in Haran, where since days of yore Sin, the great lord, had established his favorite residence. His great heart became angry against that city and temple, and he aroused the Mede, destroyed the temple, and turned it into ruin. In my legitimate reign, Bel and the great lord, for the love of my kingship, became reconciled with that city and temple, and showed compassion. I find the name Sin interesting, and maybe that's what they inevitably created Sin for, is to denounce something great that came before in the past. But here we go. In the beginning of my everlasting reign, they sent me a dream. Marduk, the great lord, and Sin, the luminary of heaven in the netherworld, stood together. Marduk spoke with me. Nabonidus, king of Babylon, carry bricks on your riding horse, rebuild Ahulhul, and cause Sin, the great lord, to establish his residence in its midst. Reverently I spoke to the Enlil of the gods, Marduk. That temple which you ordered me to build, the Mede surrounds it, and his might is excessive. But Marduk spoke with me. The Mede whom you mentioned, he, his country, and the kings who march at his side will be no more. At the beginning of the 3rd year they aroused him, Cyrus, the king of Ansan, his second in rank. He scattered the vast Median hordes with his small army. He captured Astyages, the king of the Medes, and took him to his country as captive. Such was the word of the great Lord Marduk and of Sin, the luminary of heaven in the netherworld, whose command is not revoked. I feared their august command. I became troubled. I was worried, and my face showed signs of anxiety. I was not neglectful, nor remiss, nor careless. For rebuilding the temple of Sin, my lords, who marches at my side, which is in Haran, which Assurbanipal, king of Assyria, son of Esarhaddon, a prince who preceded me, had rebuilt. I mustered my numerous troops from the country of Gaza, on the border of Egypt, near the upper sea on the other side of the Euphrates, to the lower sea, the kings, the princes, governors, and my numerous troops which Sin, Samas, and Istar, my lords, had entrusted to me. And in a propitious month, on an auspicious day, which reminds me of Buddhism, which Samas and Adad revealed to me by means of divination, by the wisdoms of Ea and Asuluhi, with the craft of the exorcist, according to the art of Kula, the lord of foundations and brickwork, upon beads of silver and gold, choice gems, logs of resinous woods, aromatic herbs, and cuts of cedar wood, in joy and gladness, on the foundation deposit of Assurbanipal, king of Assyria, who had found the foundation of Salmanessar, the son of Assurnisirpal, I cleared its foundations and laid its brickwork. I mixed its mortar with beer, wine, oil, and honey, and anointed its excavation ramps with it. More than the kings, my fathers, had done, I strengthened its building and perfected its work. That temple, from its foundation to its parapet, I built anew, and I completed its work. Beams of lofty cedar trees, a product of Lebanon, I set above it. Doors of cedar wood, whose scent is pleasing, I affixed at its gates. With gold and silver glaze I coated its wall, and made it shine like the sun. I set it up in its chapel, a wild bull of shining silver alloy, fiercely attacking my foes. At the gate of sunrise I set up 2 long-haired heroes, coated with silver, destroyers of enemies, one to the left, one to the right. I led Sin, Ningal, Nusku, and Sadarnuna, my lords, in procession from Babylon, my royal city, and in joy and gladness I caused them to dwell in its midst, a dwelling of enjoyment. I performed in their presence a pure sacrifice of glorification, presented my gifts, and filled Ahulhul with the finest products, and I made the city of Haran in its totality as brilliant as moonlight. O Sin, king of the gods of heaven and the underworld, without whom no city or country can be founded nor be restored, when you enter Ahulhul, the dwelling of your plenitude, may good recommendations for that city in the temple be set on your lips. May the gods who dwell in heaven and the netherworld constantly praise the temple of Sin, the Father, their Creator. As for me, Nabonidus, king of Babylon, who completed that temple, may Sin, the king of the gods of heaven and the netherworld, joyfully cast his favorable look upon me and every month. In rising and setting, make my ominous signs favorable. May he lengthen my days, extend my years, make my reign firm, conquer my enemies, annihilate those hostile to me, destroy my foes. May Ningal, the mother of the great God, speak favorably before Sin, her beloved, on my behalf. May Samas and Istar, his shining offspring, recommend me favorably to Sin, the Father, their creator. May Nusku, the august vizier, hear my prayer and intercede for me. The inscription written in the name of Assurbanipal, king of Assyria, I found and did not alter. I anointed it with oil, performed a sacrifice, placed it with my own inscription, and returned it to its place. For Samas, the judge of heaven in the netherworld, concerning Ebabar, his temple which is in Sipar, which Nebuchadnezzar, a former king, had rebuilt, and whose old foundation deposit he had looked for but not found. Yet he rebuilt that temple, and after 45 years the walls of that temple had sagged. I became troubled, I became fearful, I was worried, and my face showed signs of anxiety. When I led Samas out of its midst and caused him to dwell in another sanctuary, I removed the debris of that temple, looked for its old foundation deposit, dug to a depth of 18 cubits into the ground, and then Samas, the great Lord, revealed to me the original foundations of Ababar, the temple which is his favorite dwelling, by disclosing the foundation deposit of Naram-Sin, son of Sargon, which no king among my predecessors had found in 3,200 years. That means, wow, things go deep. In the month Tasritu, in a propitious month, on an auspicious day, which Samas and Adad had revealed to me by means of divination, upon beds of silver and gold, choice gems, logs of resinous woods, aromatic herbs, and cuts of cedar wood, in joy and gladness, on the foundation deposit of Naram-Sin, son of Sargon, not a finger's breadth too wide or too narrow, I laid its brickwork. 5,000 massive beams of cedar wood I set up for its roofing. Lofty doors of cedar wood, thresholds, and pivots I affixed at its gates. Ebabar, together with Ikun Ankuga, its ziggurat, I built anew and completed its work. I led Samas, my lord, in procession, and, in joy and gladness, I caused him to dwell in the midst of his favorite dwelling. The inscription in the name of Naram-Sin, son of Sargon, I found and did not alter. I anointed it with oil, made offerings, placed it with my own inscription, and returned it to its original place. O Samas, great Lord of heaven and the netherworld, light of the gods, your fathers, offspring of Sin and Ningal, when you enter Ibabar, your beloved temple, when you take up residence in your eternal dais, look joyfully upon me, Nabonidus, king of Babylon, the prince, your caretaker, the one who pleases you and built your august chapel, and upon my good deeds, and every day at sunrise and sunset, in the heavens and on the earth, make my omens favorable, accept my supplications, and receive my prayers. With the scepter and the legitimate staff which placed in my hands, may I rule forever. For Anunitu, the lady of warfare, who carries the bow and the quiver, who fulfills the command of Enlil, her father, who annihilates the enemy, who destroys the evil one, who proceeds the gods, who at sunrise and sunset causes my ominous signs to be favorable. I excavated, surveyed, and inspected the old foundations of Yulmas, her temple which is in Sipar. Anunitu, which for 800 years, since the time of Sagarakti Surius, king of Babylon, son of Kudur Enlil, and on the foundation deposit of Sagarakti Surius, son of Kudur Enlil, I cleared its foundations and laid its brickwork. I built that temple anew and completed its work. Anunitu, the lady of warfare, who fulfills the command of Enlil, her father, who annihilates the enemy, who destroys the evil one, who precedes the gods, I caused her to establish residence. The regular offerings and the other offerings I increased over what they were, and I established for her. As for you, O Anunitu, great lady, when you joyfully enter that temple, look joyfully upon my good deeds, and every month at sunrise and sunset petition Sin, your father, your begetter, for favors on my behalf. Whoever you are, whom Sin and Samas will call to kingship, and in whose reign that temple will fall into disrepair, and who build it anew, may he find the inscription written in my name and not alter it. May he anoint it with oil, perform a sacrifice, place it with the inscription written in his own name, and return it to its original place. May Samas and Anunitu hear his supplication, receive his utterance, march at his side, annihilate his enemy, and daily speak good recommendations on his behalf to Sin, the Father, their Creator. Wow, that makes me think so many different things. I can't even fathom where to begin, because it just conjures up so many different things and so many different words and terms I've heard before, so many different Enlil and characters that are from so many ancient texts, Nebuchadnezzar from Matrix, and all these different things that they import into pop culture to keep in our mindset. And how much did they know? How recent was this stuff? How real was it? There's so many questions that this all brings up. And then the second translation will bring up even more. So here we go. And enjoy this new animation I made too. It's pretty cool because this stuff reminds me a little bit of Egypt a lot. And this place was all united. Everything was known. Everything was shared at one point, and so much has been lost. That I do know. This translation was made by A. Leo Oppenheim and is copied by James B. Pritchett in Ancient Near Eastern Texts Relating to the Old Testament, 1950. So this one's very different, it seems. Here we go. As to Nabonidus, law and order are not promulgated by him. He made perish the common people through want. The nobles he killed in war. For the traitor he blocked the road. For the farmer he made rare the there is no. The harvester does not sing the Alalu song anymore. He does not fence in any more the arable territory. He took away their property, scattered their possessions. Then he ruined completely their corpses, remaining on a dark place, decaying. Their faces became hostile. They do not parade along the wide street. You do not see happiness anymore. It is unpleasant, they decided. As to Nabonidus, his protective deity became hostile to him, and he, the former favorite of the gods, is now seized by misfortunes. Against the will of the gods, he performed an unholy action. He thought out something worthless. He had made the image of a deity which nobody had ever seen in this country. He introduced it into the temple. He placed it on a pedestal. He called it by the name of Moon. It is adorned with a necklace of lapis lazuli, crowned with a tiara. Its appearance is that of the eclipsed moon. The gesture of its hand is like that of the god Lugal. Its head of hair reaches to the pedestal, and in front of it are placed the storm dragon and the wild bull. When he worshipped it, its appearance became like that of a demon crowned with a tiara. His face turned hostile. His form not even Iamumu could have formed. Not even the learned Adapa knows his name. Nabonidus said, I shall build a temple for him. I shall construct his holy seat. I shall form its first brick for him. I shall establish firmly its foundation. I shall make a replica even of the temple Ikur. I shall call its name Ehuhul for all days to come. When I will have fully executed what I have planned, I shall lead him by the hand and establish him on his seat. Yet till I have achieved this, till I have obtained what is my desire, I shall omit all festivals. I shall order even the New Year's festival to cease. And he formed to its brick, did lay out the outlines. He spread out the foundation, made high its summit. By means of wall decoration made of gypsum and bitumen, he made its facing brilliant. As in the temple of Isagila, he made a ferocious wild bull stand on guard in front of it. After he had obtained what he desired, a work of utter deceit had built this abomination, a work of unholiness. When the 3rd year was about to begin, he entrusted the army to his oldest son, his firstborn. The troops in the country he ordered under his command. He let everything go, entrusted the kingship to him and himself. He started out for a long journey. The military forces of Akkad marching with him, he turned to Tema deep in the west. He started out the expedition on a path leading to a distant region. When he arrived there, he killed in battle the prince of Tema, slaughtered the flocks of those who dwell in the city as well as in the countryside, and he himself took residence in Tema. The forces of Akkad were also stationed there. He made the town beautiful, built there a palace like the palace in Babylon. He also built walls for the fortification of the town, and he surrounded the town with sentinels. The inhabitants became troubled. The brick form and the brick baskets he imposed upon them. Through the hard work he killed the inhabitants, women and youngsters included. Their prosperity he brought to an end. All the barley that he found therein, his tired army, the Hazanu, official of Cyrus. ... Not sure where it goes, but the praise of the Lord of Lords and the names of the countries which Cyrus has not conquered, he wrote upon this stele. While Cyrus is the king of the world, whose triumphs are true, and whose yoke the kings of all the countries are pulling, Nabonidus has written upon his stone tablets, I have made him bow to my feet. I personally have conquered his countries. His possessions I took to my residence. It was he who once stood up in the assembly to praise himself, saying, I am wise. I know I have seen what is hidden. Even if I do not know how to write with the stylus, yet I have seen secret things. The god Ilteri has made me see a vision. He has shown me everything. I am aware of a wisdom which greatly surpasses even that of the series of insights which Adapa has composed. Yet he continues to mix up the rites. He confuses the hepatoscopic oracles. To the most important ritual observances he orders an end. As to the sacred representations in Esagila, representations which Iamuma himself had fashioned, he looks at the representations and utters blasphemies. When he saw the Usar symbol of Asagila, he makes a gesture. He assembled the priestly scholars. He expounded to them as follows. Is not this the sign of ownership, indicating for whom the temple was built? If it belongs really to Bel, or Bay, it would have been marked with the spade. Therefore the moon himself has marked already his own temple with the Usar symbol. In Zaria, the Satamu, who used to crouch as his secretary in front of him, and Remit, the bookkeeper, who used to have his court position near to him, do confirm the royal dictum, and stand by his words. They even bare their hands to pronounce under oath, now only we understand this situation, after the king has explained about it. In the month of Nisanu, the 11th day, till the god was present on his seat, for the inhabitants of Babylon, Cyrus declared the state of peace. His troops he kept away from Ekur. Big cattle he slaughtered with the axe. He slaughtered many Aslus sheep. Incense he put on the censer. The regular offerings for the Lord of Lords he ordered increased. He constantly prayed to the gods, prostrated on his face. To act righteously is dear to his heart. To repair the city of Babylon, he conceived the idea, and he himself took up hoe, spade, and water basket, and began to complete the wall of Babylon. The original plan of Nebuchadnezzar, the inhabitants executed with a willing heart. He built the fortifications on the Imgur Enlil wall. The images of the gods of Babylon, male and female, he returned to their cellas. The gods who had abandoned their chapels, he returned to their mansions. Their wrath he appeased. Their mind he put at rest. Those whose power was at a low, he brought back to life, because their food is served to them regularly. Nabonidus' deeds Cyrus effaced, and everything Nabonidus constructed, all the sanctuaries of his royal rule, Cyrus had eradicated. The ashes of the burned buildings the wind carried away. Nabonidus' picture he effaced. In all the sanctuaries the inscriptions of that name are erased. Whatever Nabonidus had created, Cyrus fed to the flames. To the inhabitants of Babylon a joyful heart is now given. They are like prisoners when the prisons are opened. Liberty is restored to those who were surrounded by oppression. All rejoice to look upon him as king. So definitely quite different translations there, but both alluding to a world that's just like sci-fi and distant past and ancient, and it's like just seems so much more advanced. But again, the theme of everything here is that history can be erased with ease. It's really, really sad, but it can. It can just absolutely get pummeled to nothing, to total darkness, just like this. And then it's up to us thousands of years later to theorize about what the heck we all came from, what was here first, what these places looked like, what their purpose was. Again, how deep they go, how big were these civilizations? Were there just tons of these everywhere? Did they go high? Again, from my dream, I'll have to hopefully I'll get another dream, but I just the power, the feeling I got from this place in the dream was unlike anything. And that's what I love taking away from dreams, and just what I take about when theorizing about all these different things. It's that our world is just so different. We're bogged down by everything, internet, chemicals, just poisons, toxins everywhere. Our bodies are nothing compared to what the potential that they house and are capable of. And our ancient ancestors had that potential. They knew about it at one point. They used it. At some point, there was a civilization that was fully utilizing their stuff, and hopefully not, and just not in a power situation. It seems like so many of these things that we read about have people in power that just eradicate everything. Their goal is to just keep erasing, and the slate just keeps getting clean. And how can you really know what is the truth in a world like that, where every time someone rises to power, they erase what came before them, pretty much? And something must be living and surviving underneath or beyond the poles where the answers are. They have to be there because we need to get a better glimpse of what reality is. We can't trust our educators, the TV, the media, Hollywood, anything. What it is so much more, and it has to do with everything about who we are as people. We need to live magical lives and make our world perfect and unbelievably beautiful again and healthy. Bless you all.